Good morning. Make you a study video. This goes along with the study guide that I printed out for you. There's about 50 questions, almost 50 questions, that you need to study for your exam. And I'm going to jump right into them to keep the video short. What are three things a sketchbook is for according to the lessons that I gave? There's a lot of things that sketchbooks are for, but the three things that I'm looking for are planning, recording, and remembering. Define composition. Composition is the way things are organized, specifically elements of art are organized in a work of art, in your picture. Define drawing. Drawing is a skill used to put your ideas down on paper to express yourself. Zen doodles. Zen doodles are basically patterns, repetitive lines and shapes and values and colors put down on paper that, you know, once you start going at it, kind of put you in the mode, put you in the mood. It's sort of a meditation practice. What are three types of a balance? Three types of balance would be symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. What type of balance is it when a work of art is the same on both sides? That would be symmetrical. Faces are symmetrical usually, about the same information on this side as on this side. Asymmetrical is not the same, and these are some examples of radial where no matter which way you divide it up, it's the same on both sides. Divide it up down the middle this way, it's the same here and here, and if I divide it up diagonally, it's the same up here as it is down here. That's radial. What method do we use to transfer our drawing in order to get a true symmetrical work of art on our project? A lot of people use this method. I'm not sure if they all call it the same thing, but we learned it as the graphite transfer method. Basically, you put graphite on one side of the paper. When you flip the paper over, putting that graphite side down, and you trace it, it will transfer. List the principles of design. There's 7 of them for you to remember. 7 principles of design are contrast, movement, emphasis, balance, unity, rhythm, and proportion. Define emphasis. Emphasis is the focal point of your work of art. And you emphasize something, that's your focus. That's what you're focused on. Emphasis. What is another word for contrast as used in the principles of design? Another word for contrast is variety. We just use contrast when we're listing them, but another word for contrast would be variety. Define proportion. Proportion is the relationship between two objects in regards to their size or scale. So like my hand and my head have a certain size relationship. If my hand was a whole lot larger, you might think that it was out of proportion. Or if my head was a lot larger, then you'd think it was out of proportion. I do have a pretty big head, sorry. Define unity. Just like in real life, unity is when people get along. In art, unity is when the elements of art get along in the work of art. I've got some sunlight shining in the window right here in this early morning hours. That's why my face is all lit up like this. Define color scheme. Color scheme is a color plan. Color scheme is a set of colors that work well together, that you would use in a work of art. So instead of like using every color haphazardly and randomly and ending up with some kind of chaos, rainbow chaos, you might pick out a specific set of colors. Sometimes that set of colors might just be one color, which would be a monochromatic color scheme, or no color, where you only use black, white, and gray, which would be an achromatic color scheme. Color scheme is a set of colors that work well together. A color scheme that uses only one color is called monochromatic. Colors that cannot be made by mixing any other colors are called primary colors. Colors that are made by mixing a primary and a secondary color are called tertiary colors. Colors that are adjacent to one another on the color wheel are analogous colors. Analogous. A-N-A-L-O-G-U-G. Wait, I messed that up. A-N-A-L-O-G-O-U-S. Colors that are opposite from one another on the color wheel are complementary. They're totally across the circle from each other. Those are complementary. Define line. Line is a continuous mark drawn across a surface. So whether it be a pencil drawn, whichever way you want to go, whether it's a stick in the mud and you drag it through the mud, a line is a continuous mark. Or maybe I sprinkle salt on a piece of black paper in a line, continuously across. Make a little trail of salt. A line is a continuous mark made across the surface. Define shape. Shape is when you take that line and you connect it to itself and it encloses an area. You might fill that area in with a color or black or white or whatever, but whenever that line goes all the way around and it creates an enclosed space, that is shape. Define color. Color is the response of your eye and your brain to the light reflected off of a surface and into your eye. Color cannot exist without light. Color cannot exist without your vision, and color cannot exist without your without the surface that you're looking at. So that's color. Define form. Form is the quality of something so that you can measure it in 3 different directions. You can measure its length and its width, or you can measure its height and its width, but you can also measure its depth. All right, so it'd have to have 3 different directions that you can measure. Paper is super skinny, and obviously you can measure with very precise tools its thickness, but this is largely considered to be 2-dimensional. It is length or width and height, and that's it. Define overlapping. Overlapping is when you have one shape in front of another shape. Those 2 shapes overlap, one's behind the other, and this is something that a lot of times people won't do, because of younger students or younger artists won't do this. They'll draw one object here and one object here, and they're confused about how to draw them so that they overlap. And so we make a big deal about overlapping. It's a really big deal for your mind to overcome this technique, this drawing. So overlapping is when one object is in front of another object. We're on number 25, so just 25 more to go. Define organic. Organic is natural, and usually we use this word in relationship to either shapes or lines or spaces. An organic shape is very natural looking. It looks as though it grew. It looks as though it was made in nature. Your organs inside your body are organic. Define geometric. Geometric is sort of the same as in relationship to organic. It's the same. We're talking about shapes and lines and spaces, but geometric is more man-made, the opposite of naturally made. It looks like someone put a ruler to it and created it. Red, yellow, and blue are known as primary colors. Green, orange, and violet are secondary colors. Colors that are opposite from one another on the color wheel are known as complementary. We've been over some of these before, so if you know one, you'll be able to answer 2. Colors that are opposite from one another on the color wheel are known as complementary colors. Colors that are mixed with white are known as tints. We have mixed a little white in the color to make it a lighter value, and we call that a tint. Colors that are mixed with black, mix a little bit of black into the color to make it darker, then that is a shade. Like put on sunglasses, make the light look darker. So that's a shade. What does the graphite transfer method do? Went over this a few minutes ago. The graphite transfer method allows you to redraw an image exactly as the first image that you drew. So I drew an image on this piece of paper, and then I traced it, and the graphite transferred it to another piece of paper, creating the same exact image. Define movement. Movement is a principle of design that directs the eye or describes the way your eye travels through a work of art. Define contrast. Contrast is differences among the elements in a work of art. For example, light against dark, or bright colors against muted colors, or smooth texture against rough texture. Define variety. Variety, a lot like contrast, is the differences in the elements of art. So it's like having a variety bag of chips, right? You got line, you might have straight lines, curvy lines, zigzag lines. You might have organic shapes and geometric shapes. Variety is about differences. Rhythm is when you have the same thing repeated in a work of art. Like right here we have the same imagery repeated around that circle, and over here we have paintbrushes repeated. That's rhythm, right? Balance. Balance is the way in art, we're talking usually about visual weight, whether things are the same on both sides like these are, or the same around in a circle like these are, or not the same at all like this tree is right here. And then that takes us back to asymmetrical, symmetrical, and radial. I'm basically repeating some things here. Asymmetrical is not the same on both sides. Symmetrical is the same on both sides. And radial is the same all the way around in the circle, no matter which way you divide it up. Shading. Define shading. Shading is the technique we use to darken or lighten an area to give it the appearance of 3 dimensions or contrast or something like that. What is value scale? A value scale is basically a chart that shows light, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker, with definite increments in between. So this white space is distinct from this light gray space, and so on. Value gradation is sort of like the value scale, except for you can't tell where one enters the next one, where they subtly change from light to dark. The last 3 things on your exam, one is to cut on the bottom line, and the bottom line is not on this piece of paper here, but your ability to cut on a line will be graded. You'll want to get that as accurate as possible. You're going to blend 2 colors together. I'm going to provide some colored pencils, and you're going to take like a blue and a red and blend them together in the middle. Or it might be a yellow and a green, or a yellow and a blue, or something like that. You're going to be given some colored pencils, and you're going to blend 2 colors together in this box. And then the last one is to write your name in block letters. We spent a lot of time this semester labeling things and writing in block letters, and so on the final exam you get to prove your newfound skills right here. If you didn't develop your skills in drawing block letters, it is not because I didn't give you plenty of opportunities. It's because you didn't take those opportunities. That is the entire test. Make sure you've got all those written down. If you have to, stop and pause the video. If you have to fast forward it or slow it down, whatever you need to do, you can do this on your own time. Apologize for it being such a long video, but it is a final exam. So good luck to you on your final exam, and have a great rest of your school year.